Hey, I'm Phil, and Benzie asked me to share with you my story. So here it is. I grew up in Novato. I was born on in a house on Trumbull Avenue. So shout out to Trumbull if you drive by it every day. And then I grew up in a house on Shields Lane in Novato. So shout out to Shields Lane if you drive by that one every day. Anyways, everything was going smoothly. Um, Living in Novato, growing up and until my parents decided we needed to move to Arizona in the desert, and I didn't know what that meant. So I thought the desert. I thought as a 6-year-old that meant that there was going to be wild animals and elephants and giraffes and stuff like Africa. But I had a lot to learn about Arizona. So we moved to Arizona when I was 6 because my older brother, who was 8, had asthma, and it was really bad, and he was basically like dying of it, and he was waking up all night, he was coughing, he was super skinny. And so my parents just said, hey, this great life we have here in California, all we've ever known, we're leaving it, and we're just going out to the desert and starting over so our son can be healthy. So we moved out there, and I did enjoy Arizona. And it was about 8 years later, exactly 8 years later, that we got a really terrible call, and my life got really shooken up. And I was out again in the desert with my dad, and we were doing our redneck Arizona things that we were doing. We were shooting our bows and in Arizona, and we got this call, and then the call was that my brother, my older brother, who was 16, was in an accident. And we were thinking like, well, what kind of an accident? And how serious is it? And he was a wild and fun-loving guy, and he pretty crazy, but he was also a really safe driver. So I was confused, and they just said go to the hospital, and we went to the hospital, and we knew he had gone on a rafting trip down this river with his friends, and everybody would tie their tubes together on this river called the Salt River in Arizona. And my brother ended up with all the slack rope on his lap, and they went through some big rapids, and he went underwater, and the ropes were tangled around his legs, and he was held underwater by the force of the rapids, and he drowned. And they actually brought a sheriff brought a jet boat up the river, and was able to pull him out. They restarted his heart, and they put him in a helicopter, and they flew him to the hospital. And so we showed up at the hospital, and they had got him going again with all the life support measures. And we just cried and cried and prayed for a miracle, because he was in a coma, and we prayed for a miracle. And so for 3 days we prayed, and just that, like, after 3 days, that God would raise him up just like Jesus or something. And we all prayed, and we told everyone we knew to pray, and after 3 days he didn't wake up. He just died. And it was really, really hard. And I was just after my 8th grade year. This was the very beginning of summer, and it was just devastating. And just being a young person and not knowing, just going into freshman year, and how difficult just the transition of life was and stuff. I just had a lot of hurt and a lot of pain. And my plan was always to be a football player, like my dad, who was a star football player with all of his brothers at Terra Linda High School. But when freshman year came, I just couldn't handle anyone yelling at me, because I just hurt too much. And so I stuck with tennis and soccer, where there's a lot less of the coaches yelling at you if you play tennis than there are freshman football. So I did the tennis and soccer thing freshman year, but I was always kind of a jock. And it was just a really tough time. And I remember my youth group leader taking me and my friend Dan out, and sitting down with him. And I was just at an age at 14, just had this horrible thing happen to me, and I'm just still trying to figure out who God is, and talk about Jesus, and figure out what I believe and what I think about everything. And after my brother died, a couple friends and I, 3 friends and I, we all went to this camp up in Washington State. And it was a fun camp. We all had a great time up there. We went the summer my brother died, and the next summer, and then the third summer my friends all looked around and they said, this place is awesome. Forget the 2-week camp thing. Let's go all summer and let's be counselors in training. So that was the plan. But that sophomore year of school, actually, I did end up playing football sophomore year, and it went really well for me. And I loved the camp, and my friends loved it. But I just also thought, nobody at high school knows about this Christian camp that these guys want to go to, and nobody really cares about the Christian camp. And I want to be that football star and stay home and play football. And so that's what I chose to do. My 3 best friends all flew to Washington, and they went to the camp. And then a month into the camp, we got another one of those horrific phone calls, and the call said that my friend Shenanigan had been in an accident, and I was going, which one? They all have camp names. Which one is Shenanigan? And it turned out Shenanigan was the one of the 3 best friends, the one that was my neighbor, the only one that I also went to high school with, the one that I walked to school with every day, the one that I sat at lunch together and we ate lunch together every day, and the one that I hung out with every weekend because we were next door neighbors. So that was Shenanigan. He was my friend Dan, and he had been in he rolled a car on their day off. He rolled it into a pond, and he drowned. And he was in a coma also, just like my brother, for 30 days before he died. And so once again, I was in a place where I was just super hurt, and I was just questioning, who is this God that says he loves us and cares about us if these kind of terrible things happen to us, and how does he help us when we're in need, and how does he comfort us if he's way up in heaven and we're down here dealing with the world and struggle? And so not only did I feel like I didn't really get what I wanted, Jesus didn't answer my prayer the way I wanted to. So I felt like it was terribly painful, and I ended up going to this Bible study, and I was on Saturday nights. It was 16 weeks in a row. And at the Bible study, I just said, I couldn't really share what I was feeling. In my whole junior year, I was still playing football, and I was just in tons and tons of hurt, and I was just all bound up. And I didn't believe that God could really help me and be there for me and minister to me in a real way. And so I just held on really tight, and it was in a lot of pain. And finally, I just realized that I couldn't hold it together anymore, and it just hurt too bad, and I was too upset at God, and I had too many doubts. So at one time at the Bible study, after 10 weeks of being there, I just said, you know what, you guys, I can't do this anymore, and I've had it, and I just don't know how God can touch me and minister to me and heal my hurts. And it was at that time I kind of got this vision of myself in my pain. I was like this person who was kind of just curled up and holding on to the pain and holding on to these memories of my brother and my best friend. And in my pain and my sorrow, I couldn't actually let God heal me. I couldn't actually let him speak love to me and touch me in the way that I needed, and the way that only he could say to me, because I was just all clenched in. And when I shared with these other people in the study, I didn't really hear like platitudes and stuff that I'm used to, but I actually kind of heard God speaking through them to me, and speaking right to the heart of where I was hurting and where I had the pain and where I felt so alone. And that was kind of the beginning of me just kind of cracking out of the shell. And then through college, I just had times where I would go into the dorm room and had some major crying sessions and stuff, processing all the pain and grief, but also just kind of like shedding off these layers of pain and sorrow, and just letting go of them, and kind of opening up and coming out a little bit more. And so it was a process, but that's how God became real to me in my life, is through some really hard sorrows that I experienced, and just through walking with that, and then in the process just kind of coming to know his love and his care that he does have for us. So that's my story.